Hello and welcome to Teaching Math. Today we're going to solve system of equations by substitutions. I'm going to show you three types of examples that you're going to encounter in your tests and homework, and this is the only video that you need to be successful on both. Let's get started. When we say substitution, that means we're going to substitute one of the variables, either x or y, into the other equation. Then we're going to solve for that variable, and then at the end we're going to plug in our solution to one of the equations and then solve for the second variable. In here we have the variables x and y, and we're looking for that ordered pair as our solution. Let's get started with our first example. Our first example is the simplest one that you will encounter. Y plus 3x equals 14. X minus 2 equals y. So here we're looking to see which variable is solved, which variable is alone. So that means it would say x equals or y equals. And once we know what variable that variable equals, we can substitute. So here I can see that I know that y equals x minus 2. And that means I can substitute y in our first equation. Instead of writing y, I can say x minus 2. And that's what we're going to start with. Substitute y in our first equation with x minus 2. So in here, we're going to solve for x. Let's go ahead and substitute first. So instead of writing y, I'm going to say x minus 2 plus 3x equals 14, rewriting everything else the same. Well, after I substitute, I'm going to start solving. All right, to solve the equation, we're going to have to combine like terms, which will be x plus 3x. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. 4x minus 2 equals 14. All right, now I'm going to add 2 to both sides. Again, I'm solving for x. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides because we're doing the opposite. So 4x will equal 16. Then we're going to end up dividing by 4 both sides. X equals 4. So do we stop here? No, because we still have to do our third step, which will be plugging the variable that we found and then find the next variable. So in here, I'm going to rewrite x equals 4, and we still don't know what y is. I'm going to put a question mark here, and that's what we're going to find. Now, a lot of students ask me, well, how do I know which equation should I plug in the y? Well, it really doesn't matter because you're going to get the same answer. Remember, they have one solution, and that will be the same solution for x and y. So in here, I only choose the one that is the easiest to solve, and that is your key answer. So in here, I have x equals 4. So I'm going to plug in x. So instead of writing x, I'm going to say 4 minus 2 equals y, which will be 2 equals y. And so our y equals 2. All right, now I found the solution for both. Let's recap what we did. We're going to substitute one variable, the variable that says y equals, it's all on its own, or x equals, that's what we did. We solved for x, and then we substituted x in any of the equation, in this case the second equation, to solve for y. Let's try the second one. It's just a little bit more complicated. Okay, to substitute, again, we're looking for that one equation where the variable is alone, all by itself. That means the coefficient is 1 or negative 1. So here we see that x equals negative 5y, and that's what I'm looking for. That means I'm going to substitute x in the second equation with 5 minus y. So instead of writing 2 times x, I'm going to say 2 times 5 minus y, and then rewrite the rest the same. So let's go ahead and write that down. We're going to substitute x with 5 minus y in our second equation. Okay, 2 times 5 minus y plus y. I'm going to rewrite everything else the same. All right, so here we have extra step. What do? We distribute. And so that means 2 times 5 and minus 2 times y. Okay, let's go ahead and write that. 2 times 5 is 10. And then 2 times y is 2. So minus 2y plus y equals 10. What do we do next? We're going to combine. As you can see, I'm going through the process of our second step, which is solving for y. All right, negative 2y plus y will equal negative y. So 10 minus y equals 10. Our next step is subtract 10 from both sides. And so we have negative y equals 0. Obviously, we can't leave it as negative y because negative y is negative 1 times y. So therefore, we're going to divide both sides with negative 1. So then y will equal 0. So here's the thing. When you have 0 divided by any number, it will equal 0 because we have nothing, and then we're dividing into one group, and that will still be nothing. We will still have nothing. All right, so let's go ahead and write that down. Our y equals x we don't know yet, and then but the y is 0. Well, our third step is just to plug in, right? Plug in the y value into any of the equations. It doesn't matter which one. We're just going to choose the easiest one. So I can see that our first equation is the most easiest one to plug in. So I'm going to say, well, our y equals 0. And here's my equation. I'm going to plug in the y in here. And so this will be 5 minus. Instead of y, we're going to write 0. And so x will equal 5. Let's go ahead and write that down. X is no longer unknown. It is 5, and that is our solution. So 5 and 0. So I'm going to rewrite that here. Is 5, comma 0. Okay, let's move on to our third example. It's just a little bit more complicated. All right, remember when we were substituting one of the variables, we knew what that variable equal to. And that meant that that variable was standing alone, and it would saying x equals or y equals. In here, we don't have that. So therefore, we have to manipulate one of the equations. That means solve for one of the variables. When I look at both of my equations, I can see that x here, I'm looking for one of the variables not to have a coefficient of 1 or negative 1. So in here I can see, well, this equation here is much easier to solve for x. So that's what I am going to do. Let's go ahead and do that right here. So instead of me saying, so let's rewrite that here for y plus x equals negative 1. So I want to solve for x. That means I'm going to subtract, make it alone, isolated. So subtract 4y from both sides and then rewrite everything else. So x will equal negative 1 minus 4y. Okay, so that means we're going to substitute x right over here with what x equals right over here. So let's go ahead and write that down. Substitute x with negative 1 minus 4y. All right, let's get started. Okay, we're going to rewrite 3y minus 5. And instead of writing x, we're going to write times -1 minus 4y. And then we're going to rewrite everything else the same. Okay, here we're going to start with, you guessed it, distribute. And we're going to distribute -5 times -1, and then -5 times -4y. Okay, let's go ahead and write that down. 3y as is. -5 times -1 will be +5. -5 times -4y will be +20y. Then I'm going to rewrite everything else the same. Let's go ahead and combine our like terms, which will be 3y plus 20y. Okay, so 5 plus 23y equals -18. All right, we're left with subtract 5 from both sides, and 23y equals -23. Divide both sides by 23, and so our y equals -1. All right, let's go ahead and write that down. So our x is unknown, but our y is -1. And now we're going to plug in the y to find the x value. So again, we manipulated our first equation, and that means that we can plug in the y value in that first equation and then find the x value since it's already solved for x. I'm going to rewrite the equation so you can you know what I'm talking about. So x equals -1 minus 4y, and we said that y is -1. Let's go ahead and write y equals -1. And instead of y, now we're going to say -4 is multiplied by -1. And so x equals -1. -4 times -1 will be +4, so x equals 3. And here's our solution. X is equaling 3. So our solution is 3, -1. That means x is equaling 3 and y is -1. All right, let's recap what we learned. Again, when we're substituting, we substitute one variable that could be x or y, right, into one of the equations. We want to make sure that x is or y is isolated by itself, and we know what that equals. And then we're going to solve for that one variable, and then we're just going to plug in that solution into any of the equations. It doesn't matter which one. We're just going to choose the easiest one and then find the second variable. If this video helped you to learn how to solve system of equations by substitution, please subscribe to my channel and support it, and watch out for our next video, which will be solving systems by elimination. And if you're curious to know which method to choose, watch out for the next video where I will discuss which method to choose when solving system of equations. Remember, learning math takes patience, practice, and perseverance. See you on the next one.